Hey everybody, DM Gallibond here, and this time on Lore Friday, we're going to continue examining the adventures in Chapter 4 from the Out of the Abyss campaign. This video is going to focus on Themberchaud's Lair, which is the home of Gracklstugh's wormsmith, who happens to be an adult red dragon. As with all of the adventures in Gracklstugh, this one is tuned for a party of Tier 2 adventurers at level 5. The theme of this particular adventure is to survive the political intrigue that exists between an adult red dragon and the priests who want to replace him, if they can find their missing red dragon egg. Now, the setting is the Duergar city of Gracklstugh, which is located on the shore of the Dark Lake in the Underdark. And the hook for this one is that after proving they're both capable and friendly to the city, the Keepers of the Flame try to recruit the PCs to help them, but on their way to that meeting, an adult red dragon makes the PCs an offer they can't refuse. Alright, before we go any further, I'd like to ask you, if you've been watching this far, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, click the post notification bell so that you get notified anytime new content drops. Now let's take a look at the summary of this adventure. And this one is a little bit complex, and it gives you a lot of interesting RP opportunities as a DM. So the adventure is triggered after the PCs intervene to help the city guard quell disturbances in the Dark Lake district, and this proves to the locals that the PCs are both capable and interested in seeing the orderly business of the city continue. Alternately, this might be triggered if the PCs are captured, if the Keepers of the Flame believe that they can give the offer of freedom if the PCs will come and work for them. So however it is that they start this particular adventure, while the PCs are being escorted to meet with the leader of the Keepers of the Flame, their escort is accosted by Themberchaud himself. Of course, he is the wormsmith, an adult red dragon, and he emerges from his lair to speak to this escort. He demands to speak with the PCs alone, and he orders the Duergar escorts to leave, threatening to burn them to ash if they disobey him. So, of course, those few Duergar don't have any way of fighting against a red dragon, so they're going to back off and allow the dragon to have his private audience. So then the dragon invites the PCs to enter his lair and to look upon his bed, the great mound of his dragon hoard, while they have their audience with him. Now, Themberchaud is like most red dragons in personality, in that he's vain and he's greedy. And he's unique in several ways. The first way is that he has been raised from the egg in Gracklstugh, and his hoard amounts to tribute and payment that has been made to him throughout his life from the people, the artisans, the nobility, and even the royalty of Gracklstugh. Now, another difference is that he's also really well fed, as evidenced by the fact that he's a fat dragon. I mean, he's just fat. So, Themberchaud makes small talk with the PCs for a bit. First, he asks their names, he asks where they are from, he asks how they came to be in the Underdark, and why they've come to Gracklstugh. How it is that they got to Gracklstugh. What have they seen and experienced in the Underdark before they got here? After learning everything that he can from them, and learning that they are escaped slaves of the Drow, Themberchaud will make them an offer they can't refuse. He'll offer them his personal protection as long as they remain in Gracklstugh, if they will do but one small service for him. That service is to go to the meeting with the Keepers of the Flame and do everything that they ask, except one thing. And that is report back to Themberchaud before they report back to the Keepers of the Flame. This is where you get to have a little bit of fun as a DM in terms of roleplay. First of all, you get to roleplay a dragon, and that's always fun. Remember that dragons, especially red dragons, are very aware of their ability to strike fear and awe in equal measures into the hearts of humanoids. And red dragons are so vain, they can't imagine any humanoid that wouldn't jump at the chance to accept the gracious and generous offer of protection from such a majestic and powerful and almighty creature as an adult dragon. Themberchaud will never offer any payment because in his mind, the payment of the dragon's protection would be enough reward for any humanoid. If asked why Themberchaud is interested in knowing what the Keepers would have the PCs do, he will tell them that he's been aware for some time that the Keepers of the Flame are keeping things from him, and he intends to know what schemes they are hatching. The PCs can have the glory of being personal agents of Themberchaud in this endeavor, and wouldn't it be far better for you humanoids to have a dragon as an ally than to have a dragon displeased with you? That might be a good time to have a little bit of steam or maybe smoke rise from his nostrils as he just sort of glares at them. If any of the PCs are terribly foolish during this meeting and try to help themselves to any of the dragon's treasure, make use of what we learned about dragons from Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. Now that tome reveals that dragons have a preternatural connection with every last coin in their hoard, and they know when even a single copper piece is taken from them without their permission. They also have some pretty ridiculous passive perception scores, so it will be very likely that the dragon senses anyone that gets closer than the dragon would allow them to the hoard. And in this case, Themberchaud kind of wants to keep the PCs 60 feet away from his hoard. Now, the dragon will give the PCs one polite warning to step back if they get too close. However, if this warning is ignored, or if a character manages to sneak by Themberchaud and take even a single coin from the hoard, the Wormsmith will unleash his flame breath at the offender for 18d6 fire damage. And then he casually resumes the conversation with the rest of the party as though nothing happened. You have to be prepared as a DM. You have to be prepared to teach your players a harsh lesson that when a dragon says to do something, the dragon means to do that. And if you're dumb enough not to follow instructions, and he finds out about it, you're probably, as a 5th level character, you're probably not going to live to regret the decision. It's probably going to be that player rolling up a new character to rejoin the party. And for the rest of the players, it's like a, oh crap moment. Who are we working for now? At the end of the audience, Themberchaud calls for the Keepers of the Flame escort the party had originally, and he orders the PCs should be given badges as his personal agents in the city. Then they are taken to the audience with the leaders of the Keeper of the Flame. This is where you have some choices to make as a DM. In my heart of hearts, I think the Keepers of the Flame are a pretty secretive and frankly quite devious lot. While they have a need to reveal to the party the item that was stolen from them, they may not necessarily reveal why they want it. Meanwhile, Themberchaud probably does not know what was stolen from the Keepers or that they even had it in the first place. But once he discovers what it is, he will react in a way that may surprise the PCs, until Themberchaud reveals a theory that he has cobbled together from rumors he has heard throughout his entire life in Gracklstugh. The head of the Keepers of the Flame is a Duergar named Gartok Zundorn, and he explains that the Grey Ghosts, who are the Thieves Guild of Gracklstugh, have stolen a red dragon egg from the Keepers of the Flame. Now, this is where you have to decide as a DM how you want to play this. And I'll tell you my personal thoughts on this. If the PCs conclude, which is quite likely, that they are keeping this a secret from the dragon because they don't want the dragon to find out that, oop, we lost your offspring. Well, leader of the Keepers of the Flame is probably going to say, yes, you understand. That's why it's so important that very quietly you go and find this dragon egg and bring it back to us so we can keep it safe. Boy, if the dragon ever found out that we lost it, I mean, ours wouldn't be the only heads that potentially could be on the chopping block. It would be really horrible for the entire city. It would be a desperate time. You don't want an angry red dragon in this city, do you? You don't want to be here if he gets angry. And if you tell him, you're the first ones he's going to get angry at. So, yeah, come on, do us a solid, please. I have a feeling that that's kind of the way he would react if the PCs do that. He would just play right into their suspicions and let them run with those suspicions for as long as they want to. As a DM, I think you probably hope that your players conclude that the Keepers of the Flame had this egg because they're safeguarding the offspring of Themberchaud. And the reason you hope that is because it will make one potential ending of this adventure feel like a plot twist right out of Game of Thrones. Gartakar will press the PCs to know what business Themberchaud had with them, and honestly, they're free to tell him anything they want. If they tell him something really outlandish, if they make up some sort of stupid story, like if they say that Themberchaud wants them to kill the king, then you might have them make some deception checks to see if they can get the head of the Keepers of the Flame to believe that that's really what Themberchaud wants him to do. But if they tell him, for instance, that the dragon has noticed some townspeople acting strangely and he wants to know what's happening with them, Gartakar would probably not give a second thought to that. If they tell him the truth about what the dragon said, he would definitely be very happy to learn this. Gartakar will set the PCs the task of finding the dragon's egg and returning it to the Keepers of the Flame, who want it kept safe. He will offer them no reward except safe passage out of Gracklstugh if they complete this task, thinking that he can concoct some reason to have them arrested if they balk at his offer. He will give them the name of a Darrow messenger that works for the Grey Ghosts, and Gartakar has an idea where to find him, but he's been unable to apprehend this messenger. So he wants the PCs to trail him, figure out where he goes, who he's talking to, and if they can, capture him and question him and figure out what he knows. The PCs will have a long and interesting search ahead of them. If and when they find the egg, they really have three choices. They can choose to bring it back to the dragon, they can choose to take it to the keepers, or, now, it's on you. If you're really sure you want to try this, they could try to keep the egg for themselves. If they return it to the keepers, Gartakar will thank the PCs and ask them not to tell Themberchaud. If they return the egg to the dragon, Themberchaud will probably surprise them all when he destroys the egg right in front of them. Now, after he destroys the egg, Themberchaud will say that he's learned throughout his life that no wormsmith before him has ever survived very long into adulthood. A mysterious accident, or a disease always seems to befall the wormsmith right after he becomes an adult. And miraculously, a young red dragon that has been raised from the egg by the Keepers of the Flame is produced. And this dragon keeps the forge fires of the city lit. Themberchaud does not intend to succumb to the same fate. He will reward the PCs with a random potion or oil from his own hoard, a true gift from a red dragon. So, monetarily, PCs actually come out ahead if they take the egg back to the dragon. When the Keepers of the Flame eventually find out, they took the egg back to Themberchaud and let Themberchaud destroy it. Ooh, those Keepers are not going to be happy with the PCs. Of course, there's that third option. Woe be it to you, or if you like the idea as a DM of giving away, Monty Hall type of treasure, if you let the PCs keep that egg and tell both the dragon and the Keepers of the Flame that they couldn't find it, or tell them that, gee, we found where it was, but all we found are bits of eggshell. Which probably would mean they would have to produce some shells of the egg. Maybe they would have some of that from earlier, or you might throw some red dragon eggshells somewhere previously in the campaign for them to have when I get there. But that's up to you. The most common enemies in this particular adventure are the Duergar Keepers of the Flame. And there's a special stat block at the end of the campaign that give their innate abilities and the typical spells they have memorized. And the reason for that is the Keepers of the Flame are said to be an order of psionic priests. There is a stat block, there's some innate spellcasting abilities, and then there's the priest or the cleric spells that they usually memorize. Now, the toughest potential encounter, there's really no designed combat encounters in this adventure itself. However, if the PCs try to sneak past Themberchaud and pilfer something from his hoard, the thief could face the wrath of a full-grown adult red dragon, CR-17, and his fiery breath weapon. The adventure says the dragon breathes on the PC and then goes back to the conversation. I kind of feel like if he breathes on the PC and the PC survives, he might then just decide to eat the mostly dead PC and then go back to the conversation. I don't think Themberchaud is the kind of dragon. I don't think any red dragon really is going to leave a thief alive just to teach him a lesson. I think it's like, no. You tried to steal from me. That was your last mistake. Oh, the breath didn't kill you? Well, let's try my teeth. The special creatures or items in this particular adventure are, of course, the Wormsmith and the special Duergar Psionic Priests. Themberchaud is probably the closest thing that any of the PCs will come to encountering a domesticated red dragon. Of course, the adventure reveals just how crafty even a dragon that has lived among humanoids its entire life can be. And those specialized Duergar priests, that's kind of cool to see how these different castes of Duergar are slotted into their different roles within the city. A special item that's the focus of this adventure is a red dragon egg. Now, as a DM, you and you alone are entirely responsible for any consequences that ensue from the inevitable begging by your players. Can we keep it? Can we keep it? Please? Please? Can we keep it, please? Can we keep it, please? I want you to think long and hard about how you want to handle that and what you plan to do with that egg if the PCs keep it and hatch it. Just think about the long-term consequences. My favorite element of the adventure is it's just kind of a fun challenge to RP both the dragon and these priests. You get to RP an adult dragon that doesn't plan to hurt the PCs as long as they remember who the dragon is in this encounter. And you also get to RP the leader of a group of psionic priests whose order has a long and rather sadistic relationship with the Wormsmith and his predecessors. While the Keepers of the Flame will never admit it to the PCs, the party may discover, either inferring from the conversation with Themberchaud or picking up from maybe somebody who whispers secrets out of turn in other parts of the city, they might discover that the keepers intend to hatch the dragon egg themselves, raise the hatchling to a young adult, and then kill Themberchaud to replace him with a much younger dragon that can be controlled much more easily than an adult dragon can, and then raise that young adult until it reaches adulthood. Just the same way their order has done for centuries with every previous Wormsmith of Gracklstugh. That's what I'm saying. These guys they're kind of a scary lot. You know, if you stop and think about it, that they have the hubris to think that, oh yeah, we can just raise a dragon until he gets too big to control, and then off him and bring another one in. What could possibly go wrong? Your easiest homebrew adaptation here is if you want a city that has forges powered by dragonfire, you could take this kind of predatory and symbiotic relationship as a template. Alternately, if there's some other industry that could benefit from the breath weapon of another type of dragon, you could modify this template to suit your game. There's not really a whole lot said about what makes the Forges of Gracklstugh so special. I mean, other than dragonfire and, like you could pull your sword out and say, I have a sword that was forged in the heat of dragonfire. But mechanically within the game, that doesn't make any sense. Now, in a homebrew setting, you might say that if there's a city that has forges that are powered by the breath of a dragon, well, maybe that magical fire breath, maybe that imbues anything forged in that fire with some sort of magic. Maybe it doesn't give it a plus, but it just sort of imbues it with enough magic that that weapon counts as a magic weapon. Maybe it has some kind of magical property based on the fact that it's a fire-breathing dragon. So maybe one in every so many blades that's forged there becomes a flame tongue just because it was exposed to dragon fire during the forging process. That would be something maybe you could think about in a homebrew setting. Likewise, if you're going to, let's say, replace the red dragon with a blue dragon, well, what sort of industries might use electricity? If you have kind of a steampunk setting, you'd very easily see maybe there's kind of some sort of magical batteries that power electrical lights or power electrical steam devices or things of that nature, something like that. And maybe the blue dragon's breath is used to sort of recharge these batteries that maybe run all of the artificial light in the city or something of that nature. That could be something you could think about in terms of replacing this sort of system within a homebrew city. And then, of course, if you have a dragon, at a certain point in the dragon's life cycle, it's going to realize, hey, I'm a dragon. These are humanoids. They ask me to do things. They shouldn't be asking me to do things. I should be telling them what to do. And so you almost have to have some kind of organization that sort of takes the measure of the dragon, and when it gets too big, goes, nope. Time to bring in a new one. Where do we put that dragon poison? Oh, we'll just throw that into the dragon's kibble, and off he goes. He eats it. He never wakes up again. So, something of that nature. You can use this with any edition of the game because red dragons have been around since literally original D&D, not just basic D&D, but original D&D, all the way back in the early 1970s. And so that makes this perfectly appropriate for any edition of the game. All right, if you've watched this far, thank you so much. Really appreciate you indulging us and checking out our content here. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, click the post notification bell so that you get notified every time new content drops. Next time we come back, we're going to take a look at the Whorlstone tunnels. I have been DM Gallibond. This has been Lore Friday. I hope you have enjoyed it. Take care, everybody. Good night.